What's up, guys? Welcome to the Eline Media Video Game Design Twitch channel. I'm Natalie, and I'll be live casting here for about the next hour, talking about game making, game design, game development, and helping you guys work on projects for our April 2020 Game Making Challenge. So, if you've been tuning in prior to now, you know that our game making challenge is on the theme of Never Alone. Sorry, Alone Together. What am I saying? Never Alone is, of course, Eline Media's platforming title, and I often get them confused. But our theme is Alone Together for this game making challenge. Hey, looking in the chat, Sony5, what's up? Good to see you. Um, we're making games on the topic of Alone Together throughout the month of April. And if you're a game maker at our local studio in New York City, of course, I'm expecting that you will be submitting a game at the end of the month. All right. Hey, just saying hi. I see Dan in the chat. I see Narelle in the chat. If you're just joining in, say hi. Just let me know you're here. It's great to see folks joining in as I'm broadcasting here on Monday afternoon. It's a nice Monday in New York. I hope you guys are enjoying the beautiful weather from the windows of your apartments and houses. I did not go outside today, even though I wanted to. It's such beautiful weather, but it's a little scary outside here in Manhattan. So I've been hanging out, working on games, working on stuff for hopefully teaching you guys something useful in the next few weeks as we get these games together. Yeah. Narelle saying same here. Yep. We're all in this together, you guys. That's what I try to keep telling myself. I was on a Zoom yoga class, and the teacher in that class was saying, even though you're not in the same room with people, at least it's nice to know that everybody's in it together. We're all working on the same stuff right now. We're all sitting at the computer trying to figure out what to do with ourselves. And, you know, I've actually found it a fun opportunity to put some thought into the kind of video game I would want to make for this challenge that we're doing. So one of the things I wanted to preview for you guys, just looking ahead through the month of April, Dan and I are working on an instructor game together now. So we're going to definitely submit a game to the challenge along with any other members of our studio or other folks who want to join in. And Dan and I have kicked off development on our project, and we will be publishing those videos on YouTube for you guys to see the process of us putting a game together. So, fingers crossed that we'll get some of those videos to you guys this week so you can check out what we're thinking, what we're working on, the kind of creativity that we do as an instructor game making duo. I'm really excited about it. I think it's a fun idea, and it's just incredibly exciting to have Dan's um, excellent game making expertise. I've made games in the past at game jams. I actually did 2 years in a row. I did the Global Game Jam. And for whatever reason, I often end up on a team where I'm the Unity expert and everybody else has other areas that they're good at. So I've worked with people who are pixel artists and, um, programmers who do other types of coding, but not Unity. And one year I was with a guy who was a VR specialist. So we actually tried to make a VR game. That was a failure. But it's just really fun to work with other folks who understand the bones of how Unity works. So hopefully we'll get together something that's really satisfying for you guys to play and something that fits the theme because, of course, the theme is alone together. Why do I keep saying never alone? I was looking at Never Alone earlier today, and I'm like, I can't say the name of the, the game making challenge that we're doing. I should not have used the word alone in it. I knew I was going to confuse myself. But one update I have for you, if you have been following along with these Twitch live casts, there are innumerable ways that you can follow us now that we're doing an online model. So, in addition to joining us on Mondays and Wednesdays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, you can now follow us on Twitter and Facebook. So that's at Make Room Games on Twitter. If you use Twitter, we will be posting blog posts, videos, links to our live casts, other remarks about game development, what have you, on our Twitter account. And we also have Facebook. If you like Facebook, you can just search for Make Room. We'll come up there. We're a page, just like many other organizations. Lots of good content coming through on there as well. So if you need reminders from us about what's happening, definitely head to those social media platforms. Currently, the only one we're not using that's a major one is Instagram. But, I feel like enough is enough, you guys. We're broadcasting on Twitch, we're tweeting, we're Facebooking. Yeah, we're bringing you the game design content that you have always dreamed of. So hopefully, you'll remember that we exist outside of these hours and actually feel excited about working on this game. So in just a couple seconds here, I'm going to get started in talking about a few things towards developing the different example projects I've been working on to demonstrate some basic game development stuff you guys could work with in putting together a project for this challenge. Before I dive into Unity, though, I wanted to mention that if you are tuning in today and you are a member of our in-person team at EdAlliance, if you're a game maker from that team, I am inviting you to join me after this broadcast for a short private team meeting on Google Hangouts. I'd like to just touch base with you guys and hear your voice. It shouldn't take more than about 15 minutes. Um, Yep. So if you are here by the time I'm done, which I should be wrapping up just around 5 o'clock, maybe a few minutes earlier, I will send you that invite on your personal Gmail account and you can hop into that video and join me. So as you're watching this Twitch cast, I would recommend that you just check your audio and mic to make sure you can join a Google Hangout and troubleshoot any issues. If you leave the live cast for a second, it won't bother me because of course these are all recorded and posted to YouTube, so you can always go back if you miss a bit of content. But definitely make sure your audio and mic are set, your video and your audio make sure you're set up so you can talk to me on Google Hangouts, because if possible I would like to touch base with you. I'm still having a couple of IT issues pulling people's projects, so I want to get those resolved and just find out where you guys are at with working on a project for the first time entirely on your own. If you are tuning in today and you are a member of our on the ground team and you do not have a Gmail account, if you do not have a Gmail account, now would be the time to create a Gmail account so you can join us on Google Hangouts. I know some of you guys are students and you use your student email provided by your school. So just use the hour to create a Gmail account. And then you would need to email me at nmessnard@elinemedia.com with your Gmail account so I can invite you to the team meeting at the end of this cast. So I'm going to actually type my email in the chat here. There we go. So that email address will get you in. And of course, randos, I'm sorry I can't invite you to the private team meeting. It's only for folks I've met in person. But if you are watching and you're not one of those teammates, you are absolutely invited to follow along and to make a game for this project. So, private team meeting is open to EdAlliance folks, and the rest of this glorious content is open to all of you to learn along with us at Eline Media's Make Room and become a fantastic Unity developer. So Google Hangouts happening at 5, and what's happening right now is I'm actually going to jump into the Unity project I've been working on and talk about some more game making stuff. All right. So, hey, I see Emmy in the chat. Emmy, if you're just joining us, let me know if you got the message. I was just talking about needing to make a Gmail account. So let us know if you have a Gmail account I could use to invite you to the private team meeting we're doing on Hangouts. We're doing a team meeting on Hangouts at 5. Great. Okay. So if you can use your school's email address, um, is that the one that I've been communicating with you on already? If so, I'll send you the invite at 5 right to that address. Great. Awesome. So glad. Looks like we've got at least a couple folks here, and happily, Dan will be joining us as well. So we'll have a nice short team meeting there, probably again 15-20 minutes. Um, in the meantime, though, of course, I wanted to dive back into Unity a little bit. And um, here we are. I've got a blank scene so we can start to do a little bit of playtime with what we've been working on. I think last time, I'm trying to remember, I was doing some stuff that had to do with picking up a cube and using rigid body.add force to kind of push things around in the scene of a game. We had a couple different situations where you could use rigid body.add force. One of them was in the first person game where I wanted to click to drop that cube. If you guys remember, I wanted the cube to fly away from me rather than dropping straight down when I released it. And then in the cat game, I was also interested in having the cat kind of nose an object and for the object to fly away from the cat when she noses something so that it's like she's knocking things off of shelves and kind of doing an attack. And I was, wanting to let you guys know that um, we're doing this format intentionally here where I'm going to show you examples of things you can do in game development that happen in different scenes. So rather than only always working on one project on this stream, I want to show you how these concepts work in different kinds of projects. That said, you should pick one type of project you want to do. So I'm going to show you examples all over the place, right? Sometimes I'm with the cat, sometimes I'm with a car, sometimes I'm with the first person controller in that furnished cabin. Um, these concepts apply in all games. So, don't be looking for me to show you how to start from the beginning and make your project all the way to the end. Instead, I've got tips and tricks for you happening across all kinds of different game projects that you could use for whatever version of the project that you are doing. So, with that in mind, I actually wanted to start a little bit by talking about the car game today. I haven't done that one on this Monday Wednesday cast as much, but doing like a pickup and delivery game was definitely part of the original examples I had provided in thinking about mechanics you could do for this alone together theme. So I'm going to show you guys something that you could do in any game and use the car pickup and delivery game as an example. And what I need to do actually before I can show you this in detail is I need to set up a prototype really quickly here. So I've got this big plane that I threw in the scene before I started the cast just so I had a ground to work with. And I'm going to set my prototype very, very basic up here with an asset I found on the asset store called City Tools. Um, I'm gonna have to sort through this a bit because whoever made this asset is not an English language speaker. There some other language in here naming things, so it's a bit weird. This pref folder here, as it turns out, is the prefabs, and conveniently enough, I've got some nice road assets in here. So I think I'll probably just lay down a road. First, I'm going to drag that in the scene and reset it just to put it at 0. And it looks to me like my plane is a bit below 0. So what I'd like to do actually is I'd like to bring it up just enough so that it provides a road, a collider, like a solid surface underneath the road because these prefabs don't come with colliders on them. So I pull this in and I immediately am like, okay, cool. Um, Whatever this is just a picture. So I need something solid underneath. And the way I'm going to fix that is I'm actually going to just put this plane at minus zero point 0.1. So it's ever so slightly below these visual assets. My hope is that when I put the car on them, it will not really be visible that the tire is slightly sticking through the road and landing on the box collider or the mesh collider of the plane. So I'm just going to lay some road down honestly so I have something to work with. Again, dragging these in, I rather than adjusting and dragging and doing all kinds of this, I'm going to use the inspector to make things easy for me. I'm going to click reset. And actually, fun fact, if you hold down on a PC on the control button while you drag, this an asset will actually sort of snap to this grid out here in space. You see, this grid is here for a reason, and part of that reason is to help us line assets up. Sometimes it doesn't work quite right. I do see a tiny little line between those, but it did help me get them pretty close to being next to each other. And now I can just true that up a bit and it looks pretty good. So I've got that one laid down now. And instead of dragging that same piece in again from the project folder, I'm actually just going to duplicate it. So I click on it in the hierarchy, click Control D. And then as I hold down on Control, I can just sort of drag it over here and it snaps, drag it over a little bit, looks good enough, right? So let's duplicate that again, drag it over. Again, my goal here is really just to create the most basic prototype. I don't want to get all like, I'm going to build a whole city before I've even determined if my gameplay with my car is fun. So I've got a couple streets here. I've got this one and I've got this one. Let's duplicate that. Hold down on control so I can make this link. Okay, looks good. You know, it's not that interesting, but it certainly works. So cool. I've got a road. And maybe what I want to do here is I want this to have a little bit of grass to it. So actually, that feeds into what I was just going to talk about when I pull the car in. But I'll preview it now. So if I want to put some kind of give this a look other than white, I'm going to have to change the material of this game object. And I believe there's some materials already around here. I've got materials in the City Tools folder. I might even be able to just search this for materials and see what comes up. I've got a lot in here already. Let's see if I can find something interesting. That's not too interesting. I actually think I'll go back to what I just saw in my city tools here because a lot of these actually look like something you would see in a city. Let's see, which one should I put down here? Bricks. That's kind of crazy. It's huge. Maybe we want granite. Awesome. That looks nice. So what I can actually do here is I've tossed this material that I found in my project on the game object. And this is using a texture to create this sort of detailed look. And it looks bizarrely zoomed in. So I'm actually going to tile it so that it looks a little bit more realistic. Might even need to go up more so that it fits the look of my road. It's a bit strange. Let's just leave it like that, though. Again, we're making a prototype here. We're not building the level yet. All right. So I've got my road set up. Best practices, right? I use holding down on control to kind of snap them together. I find a material and I throw it on the plane just so it's not bright white. Now I'm going to grab my car. I need to find my standard assets folder. Fun fact, so I was broadcasting on here a few weeks ago, maybe it was last week actually. And the standard assets were missing in the asset store. It's like, where did they go? And then today I was on the asset store and I saw them there again. So I don't know what was going on, but it looked like they were just temporarily not there. But it seems like you guys should probably be able to get the standard assets once again if you still need them for your project. You can also get them from me. All right. So I've got the car in, and I need to toss in a camera to follow this guy. If you guys remember, I think I showed you this before. There's some nice cameras in the standard assets. I click on cameras, I open prefabs. I'm going to drag this to the left just so I can see what they're called. I want multi-purpose camera rig. I just want the camera to follow the car. It auto targets the car. The script that comes with this camera is really nice. So I don't even have to tell it to go along behind the car. It's just going to do it. All right. Let me check to see if this runs. Cool. Awesome. I've got a car here. And we have the usual problem, which is that I have two cameras in the scene. And let's try it now. I'm going to turn my sound down. That thing is loud. Cool. Awesome. I've got my camo car here. So, all right. I've got my car running and I've got this really weird looking texture. Obviously, I would need to do some work to make that look more realistic than it does now. I think I probably tiled it too dramatically. But in any case, I've got this set up. So, what I wanted to talk about today specifically actually had to do with what I was doing here with this plane and also what I was doing with this car before I started the live cast, which is I was thinking about ways that I can color in 3D objects in games. And of course, if you've been taking classes with us and working on games in the past, you guys know that changing the color of a game object is a little bit more complicated than you would initially think. So it's tempting, of course, when you see something like this to come over here into the inspector and see this box that has a color in it and think, oh, if I click on this, it's going to change the color of the car. But of course, I turn it red and we look here and the car still has this camouflage look to it. Um, it's not red, right? And so, for many a beginning game maker, we're really freaked out because why is that red? Oh, well, first of all, I clicked on the plane. Hold on. Let's click on the car. It's like, why is that red? You clicked on the one that's the one you clicked on. All right, let's get rid of the red. So the car is the one we're talking about. Let's try that again. Um, Again, saying to ourselves, let's say I want to color this thing in. Um, I'm actually going to just click on the body of the car and run through the thing I was just doing, which is to say that changing the color does change the color of the car, but it doesn't always change it the way we want it to change. And, for example, you can still see that sort of camo textured effect that I've got on there. And so I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about these settings you see when you start to explore the idea of what makes a 3D game object look the way it does. So before I started the cast, I was playing around with this car and, let's actually go back to none here. This is more what that car looks like when it comes in the basic standard assets pack. It's just a neutral color, sort of a gray white. And when you see this initially, it's like, oh, that's a really great 3D model. But if I want to actually customize this for my game, it would be nice if I could color this car in, right? And of course, this doesn't just apply to cars. It could apply to any object that you download from the asset store or an object that you make yourself using Blender or Maya. So of course, I can give you guys some examples of this earlier on, I was thinking about some of the other games we're working on. We have the cat game, we have the cabin game, and I downloaded another asset. It was a pack called Toon Furniture. It's I always use free assets. All of these are available on the asset store, and I went in there and got some housewares. Now, these all come as prefabs already colored in. But what if you wanted to color them in yourself? Of course, most asset packs that you download come with the model without any textures on it, something like this. So you've got a situation here where if you wanted to customize the look of this, you might be able to. So, people ask me this a lot when we're working on stuff in the in person game studios, and how do you do that? So, let's go back to what I was saying when I was clicking on this thing and saying, if I want to give there to be a color to the plane or the car or really any game object I put in my game, I need to interact with materials. All right. So what's a material? Let's click on the car. I want to go back to um my body color here. So basically, you've got this thing at the bottom here in the inspector that contains a lot of information related to how the object looks. So a material in Unity is pulling in a shader, it's pulling in textures. It ties those all together and all at once applies them to whatever 3D object this material is attached to. So, a shader is a piece of code that controls the way light appears when a 3D object is rendered. And that sounds insane if you don't do game development a lot, but long story short, there is real light in the world we live in, but in the world of games, someone has to create the light. And you create the light by making the actual pixels you're seeing on the screen look darker or lighter, depending on the way you want a supposedly 3D object to appear. So I won't go on about shaders for a long time because I could talk about them for hours, but that is essentially what a shader does. It controls the way light looks on a 3D object, and it also controls the settings we can see in the material that we've applied. So you have to have a shader when you make a material, and then depending on the shader you select, you'll have these different options down here on the right in the inspector to set things like albedo, smoothness. You've got how smooth does the surface of an object look. Other shaders have other settings, and the cool thing about them is they can be customized and written by programmers. Um, and depending on what you're interested in having happen with a shader, you can create all kinds of things in your inspector. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty in depth, but what you generally want to know is a lot of things in Unity to start. Oh, hey, I'm seeing David in the chat. Hey, David, what's up? I think that's you. Yeah. Just talking about materials here. Um, you don't need to know how everything works when you are playing with materials, but it can be helpful to remember that the primary setting in a material that controls the way a 3D object or a piece of a 3D object looks is its albedo. If you don't have a texture loaded into the albedo, it will then take the color of whatever you set in the shader. So with nothing in the albedo, I actually can just change the basic color of the body of the car. And then if I want to use a texture instead, I'll often make that white. And then I can load something in here by clicking this circle. Let's make this big so we can see which things are actually interesting textures. All kinds of random textures in here. I could really pick anything. Um, let's make it look grassy. Cool, it looks like grass. And then I can play with the tiling just to be maybe making it look more realistic, whatever realistic means in this situation. Um, so there you go. And then once I've got that texture loaded in for that albedo, I could then sort of tint it with the color. But what happens to a lot of people is they'll load in something like this and they're like, I want that chair to be purple. And the problem with trying to make the chair purple is, you know, you're tinting what you've got already loaded in here. So it doesn't look like a true purple because you're adding an additional tint to what's essentially like a flat graphic that's been applied to a 3D object. So if you were going to do this with this car, I would say, it's easy because you start out with something blank and you could easily start to just add a texture in the albedo or add a color here, just depending on how you wanted it to look. However, and this is the thing to keep in mind when you make materials, any material that you apply to an object and edit, your edit will apply to every object in your game that's using that material. So, what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, I have this um, Concreto 1 looking this particular way, right? I had set this up attached to this plane. So, I set this tiling. Oh, there's your problem, Natalie. It's not 100. Maybe that'll be a little bit less crazy looking. I had set this plane up to look like a big piece of concrete here. And I actually did change the tiling on the material, and let's tint it just to represent our change. Now, any other object that's using this material is also going to look like that. It's also going to look like that. And this can be counterintuitive because often several different objects within like a folder of prefabs will use the same material, and you'll click on it and be like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm just going to change the color of this one chair." And then you find that you're changing the color of like every chair in the room because you're editing a material that's attached to all of the objects that came with the asset pack. So, what I would say is, instead of editing each object individually, I would start by making a material separate from the object and then applying it to the object you want to use it on. So, for example, on this car, I've got Sky Car Body Gray, which was the material it came with, and I've edited that material to have a grassy looking albedo. I've also changed the tiling on that albedo to 5.5. Now, any other um, aspect of this asset pack that uses this material is going to look like that. And I have not only changed the body of the car, I've changed all of the objects that use that material. So let's say that I wanted to instead create, let's see, I'm going to actually look here. Yeah, this is an example of that effect, right? So if you look here, I've got Sky Car Body. And when I click on that in the hierarchy, what I see here is the body part of the car is highlighted. And if I move it, I can see what that is. However, these mud guards here on the top of the wheel, this piece right here, this is actually a separate 3D mesh that's part of the entire object. If I move it, you can see it's actually not attached, but that mudguard is using the same material as the body. So clicking on the mudguard front left, I see Sky Car Body Gray is also being used for that mudguard, which means if I want to change the body of the car but not the mudguard, I'm going to have a problem. So just to illustrate this, you know, once again, I click on the body, I'm like, oh, I want to tint my material. Ooh, let's make it purple, whatever. And as you can see, the material attached to that mudguard is also turning purple. So what if I didn't want that to happen, right? Like, let's say okay, I'll put this back to that. Let's say I said I want to make this like wacky car that has this green body, and then I want like bright orange mud guards right here in the front. How do I do that? Okay. So if I want to make a mud guard material that's different from the body material, I can actually just create a material of my own in the project. And the way I would do that is I can go anywhere in the project. I could go to this materials folder if I wanted. I'll just stay in the root assets folder so I don't confuse myself. I would right click here in the gray. I would go to create, and then I would click on material, and I'm going to call this mudguard. Now I can build out a separate material that controls the way just this one 3D object looks. So I said I wanted it to look orange. One option is I could just do this, right? It's just going to be an orange color in that case. Let's see if I can make it really bright. Something like that. And then if I wanted to, I could turn the smoothness down so that it looks a little bit more tactile. If you look at the circle in the lower right-hand area of the screen, you can see as I turn smoothness up and down, I'm changing the way light would fall on a sphere covered in this material. And if I turn it all the way to the right, it looks almost like a marble. Whereas if I turn it all the way to the left, it looks almost like that to me looks like a ball, like a racquetball ball, or like a really like a soft rubber ball. So I don't know how shiny I really want that to be, but it's definitely not made out of rubber. So, it's the surface of a car. Let's put it there. And then similarly, I can make it look more intense and metallic, or I can make it not seem very metallic at all. Maybe just a little bit metallic there. So just some basic stuff I'm doing here to make my own material. And then if I want to apply it, I can actually just drag it to the object in this scene and drop it, and the object will accept that material instead of the one it was using. So now I click on mudguard front left, and it's using my new material. Let's go to the other side. Let's say I wanted to make the right one match it. I don't think I can drag it on top of the inspector, but I can also drag it on top of that game object in the hierarchy. So I've gotten a start here. I've got orange wheels. I've got my crazy grass covered car. I could keep doing this with the wheels if I wanted. Here's my sky car wheel gray. And this is a nice time where it's beneficial that this material is applied to all of the wheels. So if I click on all the wheels here, I can see, yep, they're all using the same material. So if I wanted to, and I know I'm not using this anywhere else in the project, I could just change these. So let's say I wanted to just, again, make this so wacky. Let's make them be stripy, because why not? So I put that in for the albedo. It looks a little faded, so I'm going to actually take the color back to white, which really helps make the albedo visible since it's not being tinted by any color. And now I've just got this amazing looking car. I am such a fan of it. So you can see with the wheels, right? Like that functionality of using the material on multiple objects is kind of a benefit. Other times it doesn't do what you want, but usually what you need to know is just how this is working so you can manipulate it to your benefit. And to summarize, there's a lot of stuff we could talk about in here. But two of the main things you need to know when you're playing with materials is the albedo is a flat graphic that can give a particular look. It's like that's the wrapping paper that goes around the 3D object. This top color box is typically going to tint your albedo or just offer a color if you don't have a graphic here. And then this first box of tiling right here controls how finely tiled this image is. Now, again, these settings are specific to the standard shader. We've got standard, specular setup, and standard, which are pretty similar. The only difference there is some of the settings right next to metallic and smoothness, which believe we have an option for a specular type of image instead of adjusting the metallic, and that's the difference between those two. Um, I could tell you take a whole nother other hour to explain the differences among some of these shaders, but my general recommendation is to work with the standard shader or the specular standard shader if you're making your own materials. The other option is to copy what other people do when you pull assets. So that is how you color in a mesh. And of course, when you're wanting to break it down into pieces and add colors to those pieces, what you want to do is load whatever the object is into your scene and then over in the in the hierarchy, unroll it and see what's there. And it'll allow you to break it down into pieces and only color the pieces you want. So, unfortunately, the body of the car is one piece and I can't color the window, which it would be cool to be able to color the window. But in some objects, if you really break them down into their various mesh pieces, you'll get a pretty high degree of control over being able to color in different pieces and parts. Sometimes you might only want to just change one thing. All right. So I want to, wow, this is really, really psychedelic at this point. I'm such a huge fan. We've got red ground, we've got a stripy car, and I actually wanted to take this concept away and out of the car scene that I've got here and into the scene I was working on with the cat avatar. So I'm going to hop over into my scenes folder and show you guys another example of this same thing at work in my cat scene. So I'm here. This is the room I've been playing in with my third person cat example. And if you were here last time, of course, you probably remember that I had this cat. We were working on getting the cat to kind of hit things. Looks like we've got a cube acting a little bit strange. I don't know why that's in the floor, but um, we had the cat, nosing things. And then when she noses an object, it kind of shoots away. And I was thinking about this materials thing because, of course, at some point, if you're working on a project like this one, you're going to need to build out an environment where it's fun and pleasing to move the cat around and knock things off of other things. So I, of course, pulled this Tune Furniture asset and I started looking at some of this stuff like, how would I build this scene out so that the cat could move around and jump up on things? Um, we've got some cabinets here. That's probably not going to work. Don't want that there. Um, Here's a couch. So this is a good candidate for this. This is a good candidate for this. So this is nice, right? Like they've colored this pretty nicely. And of course, always consider just using the material that a 3D object comes with because someone's generally put a good amount of effort into making it look pretty well. But I'm looking at this and I'm saying, what if I wanted to make this a different color? So why not, right? So I'm actually going to go grab the couch from the models so that I can just use some of the materials that, well, let's see if I can just drag the one that I made right on here and get it to replace the one that it came with. I might not need to do that. So what did I do here? I created this shiny orange. Let's give the couch shiny orange, right? So, I mean, to me that looks totally weird, but like, hey, maybe it's a vinyl couch, right? And again, that's my mudguard material that I used to make the mudguards look orange. And here I am, another project. Maybe I want an orange couch, right? So you know, the nice thing about this is it really transfers from one place to another. And if you make a material you like, um, you can use it again. But don't forget. Now, say I'm in this, I'm like, oh gosh, I just love this orange couch so much. That looks so dope. Like, I'm definitely gonna use it. No collider, but we can put that in. Now say I said, okay, so I like this, but I just feel like a couch should not look so metallic. So I'm going to turn the metallic and the smoothness down on this. I want it to look a little bit more pillowy. All right. Yes, that looks so much more like just soft and nice to me. So much more happy with that. There's my orange couch. Yes, it's my dorm couch. And I'm like, great. That looks better. I've fixed my couch. Now, if you go back into the scene I was in before, and I can't emphasize this enough, say my cat scene, again, even in a different scene, you can tell the material has been changed with my car as well. So I've reduced the metallic, I've reduced the smoothness, and now the mud guards on my car look like rubber. So it's it's probably best in that case what I would do if I were back there in the cat scene. So I'll head back to my cat scene, and I'm here with this couch, and I've taken my orange material and I've dropped it on here. Cool, it might be in your best interest to duplicate the material and change the duplicate. So rather than just using one from a different project that I'm also working on in the same project in the same Unity project, I would duplicate it by highlighting it, and then when I created this second one, I pressed Control D. And then on this new one, I can go rename. I'll name it couch. And then there I can start making the adjustments that I need to maybe make this couch look a little bit softer. Meanwhile, I'll put my metallic mud guard back the way it's supposed to be, and I'm going to put my soft material on my couch. So, just a little bit of best practices in how you could deal with materials effectively. But isn't this nice? Like, I think that looks pretty great, and there's a lot of fun stuff I could do to try to play with this. Um, the normal map, which you'll see comes with some assets, though it didn't come with this one, adds additional texture. So if, for example, you wanted to make this couch look like it was like a corduroy couch, you know how corduroy has like it has like little stripes that kind of go in and out. That's often where you'll use what's called a normal map, which will create the illusion of more texture on the surface of an object without forcing us to like actually like dig grooves in the side of the couch when we're modeling it. Um, I'm definitely curious if this couch breaks up into pieces, but it looks like maybe it doesn't. Let's see. Looks like it's just one big piece, which kind of makes sense when you're making a couch. But of course, let's see about this. Yeah, it's just one big cube that's been formed into the shape of a couch, it looks like. Depending on the assets you pull, there might be some cases where, you unroll it and you've got all kinds of different pieces that are adding up to the entire couch, which is cool because then you could just color in one pillow. In this case, though, because I've only got these 3 child game objects here of this couch, whatever color I put is going to be taken by the entire couch. So that's how the asset was put together. But let me know if you guys have questions about this. I just thought it would be really helpful to take this opportunity, which does take a bit of explaining, to give you guys a sense of the way materials and textures and colors really work to lend objects the look they have when they're in a scene. And, we do only have about 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes ish. But I did want to show you guys one more thing, which was another sort of best practices thing for how to deal with um, creating objects in a scene once you've given a prototype the functionality that you want. And let me show you what I mean by that. So, say I'm prototyping in here with this cat scene, and I'm going to actually try to see if I can fix this cube because the last time I was working on this, I have no idea why that's sinking into the ground. That is so weird. The last time I was working on this, we had uh created a game object here. Maybe it's got a weird box collider. Yes, it does. That is why. We had created a kind of basic cube here that the cat could push out of the way. This should fix it. Yes. All right. And now that should work the way we expect. Cool. So we've got this cube. And I was using that as a prototype just to design an object that I could knock off of a shelf. Um, yeah, there we go. So if you want to learn how to make that work, check the video for Wednesday last week where I showed you guys how to code up a quick script that is actually attached to that cube. Um, nope, it's not attached to the cube. It's attached to the cat. So we on Wednesday had added an on trigger method where any object that's got a tag of knockable can be hit by the cat. So here's my final thing. Say you've got this prototype set up, right? And you've like, okay, I've written some code where the cat can knock that cube out of the way. Now, the cat's not able to knock the table or the chair or anything like that. But the cube has the functionality I want. I've set up its colliders the way I want. I've set its scripts up if there are any. Now, I just said this one doesn't have a script, but in some cases, an object like this might actually have a script. So, like, say you are doing something like this in the first person cabin scene where you've coded the cube I had in that scene to be able to be picked up, right? You've set it all up, but you've got this annoying cube. Now, one option is every time you want to have an object that the cat can knock out of the way, you could reset the object up from scratch, right? So you'd put the object in the scene, you add all the stuff in the inspector that you wanted to have. However, another option that you can do is actually to just add visuals to the cube and then duplicate that, changing the visuals depending on what you want it to look like. So, what I mean by that is this cube functions in this particular way in the relation to the cat. And let's say I was like, I want a vase that has the functionality of that cube. Now, I could bring the vase in, it's really just a picture of a vase and start setting that up, right? I'm like clicking on the cube. Okay, I know that needs a sphere collider, needs a rigid body. What else does it need? Blah, 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 right? It needs to be tagged, all this stuff, right? But the other option is I can drag that vase out of the project and actually just make it a child of the cube. Now I reset to make sure I'm right there on the cube. And then I'm going to resize it so that it's about the right size. There it is. It's about the right size, sitting there in the middle of the cube. I can actually move that a bit down just so it's kind of in the middle of the cube setup. And then I click on this parent and I simply deactivate the cube itself. Works the same way, right? So I'm essentially what I'm doing here is I'm still interacting with exactly the same thing I was before, but the difference is it looks like a vase. Little bit hard to do against a wall. We could probably use some logic to improve that. But let's get my attack going. Boom, boom. So the thing I was trying to emphasize here is that there are like lots of different ways that you can add functionality to game objects. And one of them is to take a game object you've already built and just switch out the way it looks. So, with this, now that I've got this set up this way, I could duplicate it. So I've got a second cube. Again, I pressed Control D to get that to happen. And let's say I wanted that to be something else. Maybe I want it to be a house plant. I'm going to make that a child. It came in over to the left, but I can reset it so it'll center itself on the object it's a child of. I'm going to delete my vase as a child. I'm going to turn this into something a little bit smaller so it fits the form factor of the scene I'm doing. And the final thing I need to do is probably just check my collider setup. This is probably like a little smaller, so I'm gonna see how well that actually works, right? Something like that. It's a little off center. Still some setup you need to do. But the point is that it's less. There we go. Yeah, let's just try that. It's a bit of a mess, but it still works, right? So that's my idea. Just add visuals to things and you'll know that they work in your scene rather than every time you want to add something in, starting over from scratch and trying to figure out why, inside the cat. Why does this one work? Why does that one not work? I sometimes don't even know the answer to that question. But what I do know is often I do have one that does work. And so I'm going to start with that. I'm going to duplicate it and I'm going to just make it look different depending on what I need. And with some of these tools, it's a really great way to start building out a scene. Put these on the table to see how that looks. Oh, fun times. I think the table would also need a collider. Oh my gosh. Why are you there, Vase? Mr. Vase. I probably moved it from the original. I did. Oh no. All right, I'll put these back. There we go. So I actually made that was the funny mistake, and I'll close with that since we're about at 5. Um, all right, so David, I'm seeing in the chat. I followed the tutorial and now I know how to make materials. Word, yes, that's so dope. So let me close with this last remark. So I just made a classic mistake and I want to show you guys what that was. So right off the bat, I'm like, cool. So I'm going to make these visuals be a child of the original game object that's already outfitted with the functionality I need. And then I didn't close those game objects back up. And so, of course, I moved the child. And if you have this set up like this, where you have, like the vase is a child of the cube, and then like you call this vase, right? And then you move this one, what happens is you're moving the picture of the vase, but what you haven't moved is the actual functionality of the game object. So if I put this picture over here on the table, something like that, but I don't move the thing it was a child of, the cat's actually going to run into that box when I start moving the avatar around when I'm playing the game. So it's something you have to be careful of if you use this approach. Just make sure you close up and rename your parent game objects when you do that, and you should be fine. So now I move the parent, and it should act the way I expect, which is, of course, to fall through the table because I don't have a collider on it. And who knows why that just did that. That is so weird. Anyway, we are about at our time, and so why is that there? I believe I need to reset this. I do. There we go. There we go. There we go. All right. Go be on the table like you're supposed to. Fun times, guys. All right. So I can push it. Damn you, tiny vase. So anyway, uh so that's my advice to you guys for this. So we've got materials, we've got a workflow for duplicating and adding functionalities to things. No matter what, you always going to have to troubleshoot objects like this so that they interact with your animal avatar the way you want them to. Um if I were to keep working on this prototype, the next thing I would do is I would start to try to build the room out, get those objects really working correctly. I've got something going a little weird with that vase. I still think I've got the child somehow offset from its collider. Yeah, it's a little bit weird, right? So I'd need to do some adjusting of those boxes to get them centered. But for now, I'm going to sign off of Twitch. And just to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the live cast, if you are a member of the in-person game making studios we do at EdAlliance, following this live cast, after I log off, I will be inviting you to a Google Hangouts. So you're invited to a private Google Hangouts meeting right now. So as soon as the live cast is over, you'll get an invite to that Google Hangouts video call at your Unity email address, the email address I use to communicate with you now. And you'll have the opportunity to chat with me, and we'll talk about what your game is turning into and what you guys need to work on or the stumbling blocks you're hitting right now. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being along for my exploration of materials and this method for switching out the visuals, but leaving the functionality as it is on a prototype game object, which is something that you could do in any game making situation. Super nice as long as you fix the collider, which I did not do on that vase. It is very tempting for me to start playing with that and fixing it, but I want to talk to you guys about your games. And I would love to hear what you guys are thinking for this game making challenge in just a few minutes. Hello in the chat. We're about to end. So if you are a member of our game making studios, let me know who you are. Send me an email, and otherwise, I will reconvene with you guys. I will be on Google Hangouts, hopefully with you in the next 5 or 10 minutes. All right. So, once again, this is Natalie signing off for Eline Media Studios at EdAlliance. And I hope you guys are enjoying doing Unity. I am like, who is this person in the chat saying how? All right, guys. Sorry, I got to cut it off, but I'll see you on Hangouts in a few minutes if you're on our team. And on Wednesday at 4 o'clock back here on Twitch. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Make Room Games on Twitter. And you can go to makeroom.elinemedia.com/online-gaming for details about the challenge we're working on now. See you later, guys.